Islam,
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 Islamism.
Islamism. Welcome to the Moorish Sense Channel. Praise Allah. We want to welcome everyone to the Moorish Sense Channel. I'm your host, one half of the dynamic duo. It's your brother Brendan Jordan Ill, and to my right,
Brother Valines Bay.
again, welcome to the Moorish Sense Channel. It's been a little while since we last broadcast, about 3 weeks, but we're back on.
They thought we was gone, but we back again.
Like we never left. Yep. So we have a really good program for you all this evening, and we hope that you enjoy it. But as always, we want to start our program in tonight's segment off with the Moorish American prayer.
Islam,
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 Islam.
Islam.
Allah, the Father of the universe,
Allah, the Father of the universe,
the Father of love,
Father of love,
truth,
truth,
peace,
peace,
freedom,
freedom,
and justice.
and justice.
Allah is my protector,
Allah is my protector,
my guide,
my guide,
and my salvation,
and my salvation
by night
by night
and by day,
and by day,
through his holy prophet,
through his holy prophet,
through Ali.
Ali.
Amen.
Amen.
Islamism.
Islam. So again, welcome to the Moorish Sense Channel. You know, we want to rise and give praises to Allah as always. Allah is the Father of the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. I want to give honors to the Prophet Noble Jura Ali, the founder of the Moorish Science Temple of America. I also want to extend the honors to the reincarnated prophet. I also want to extend the honors to the Supreme Grand Resurrection Grand Sheikh Timothy G. Dean Galil. I want to extend honors to our leadership, our officials, our seniors, and our elders. I want to extend honors to our Supreme Grand Sheikh Clarence Prather Ill, as well as Supreme Grand Sheikh Prather Ill. My National Grand Sheikh National Grand Sheikh T. Jones Bay, and all the other officials on the national level, as well as my officials at 1055 North Milton Avenue, 2900 Pressman Street, and all the other respective temples throughout the land. We want to give honors to all Moorish officials, those that we know and those that we don't know, all of those who are propagating the faith of Ali here in America, keeping the doors of the Moorish Science Temple of America open, and uplifting fallen humanity in the name of Allah and His holy prophet. Islam.
Mm-hmm. Islam.
So we have a good segment for you all tonight. Tonight we will be focusing on pre-colonial and colonial history in America. Now, the title itself, I know, and I'm not going to assume, but I'm pretty sure most people are thinking that we're going to be focusing on honing specifically in on American history, which we are. We're going to provide a few definitions, a few footnotes. We also provide some primary sources as well as some secondary sources, and we will clear up and verify it. And as always, we are going to confirm ourselves to our literature and the records of the Prophet Noble Jura Ali has given us as Moorish American Muslims. And I did say Muslims because we are Muslims. We do submit our will to the will of Allah, but also we are the perfected ones as peace, as you often say. Is that right, Sheikh?
Yeah, that's right. That's the actual definition of the word Muslim, the perfect ones of peace.
Thank you.
Right? And we're striving to become that.
That's right.
Yes.
Praise Allah. So the first thing I want to do, I want to give my audience the definition of America. Now, what you're going to see here, this is coming from a copy, actual hard copy of an 1848 Webster's Dictionary definition of America. Well, excuse me, 1848 Webster's Dictionary of the English Language. And it's a few things I want to point out with dealing with the English language, some things that I had noticed, and I've had this dictionary for a while now, but some things that I had noticed pertaining to the term America, the coining or the phrasing of the word America, the fact that it is steeped and shrouded in some confusion as well as some mystery, And as we know, a mystery ceases to be a mystery after it is revealed and explained.
That's
So
right.
we're going to get into that term America because a lot of people are under the assumption and the impression that this word America, or this landmass that we know as America, was founded by Amerigo Vespucci. But as you're going to see in a few minutes, Noah Webster, actually lets the cat out of the bag in regards to Vespucci's um, involvement, quote unquote, involvement with the word America. So
Well,
let's
well,
go.
she this is a, this subject in general is a loaded, like it's loaded,
It's going to
right?
take us some time to slow
So
walk it,
it's
man.
going to take us some time because we have discovered various documents,
That's right.
and basically, just to give some background history, we I'm gonna say unorthodox when it comes down to um the way that we kind of do things, right?
Right.
You being a history major, right? Um and I'm not gonna say by a long shot that I'm a history major. Somehow I just kind of fell into history. It was um the prophet gives us he gives us keys, and it leads us to certain places when we just kind of look at it carefully.
That's right.
A lot of people would say, and I just want, we're not really worried about when people say, oh, that's not what the prophet meant. Or, no, what happens is we know and understand that Allah communicates to us, and we have a relationship with Allah just like He communicates to other people. As long as you keep yourself clean, your hearts and minds pure with love, and your body's clean with water.
That's right.
So we ask people to take this walk and this journey with us, right? And we're not trying to overshadow anybody else that's teaching anything else, but this is the way that Allah has revealed certain things to us based off of our studies, and we bouncing things off of one another. And you and I, we look at certain things and we talk to some of the elders and get documents and things of this nature. This is how we not just going off our own understanding. And I want to Mo, I praise Allah for you. It just talking to the elders that you do talk to, because you have relationship with some elders. I have a relationship with some elders. But you send me some beautiful pictures, and it's not like we just popping up fly by night.
Right.
We got pictures of our genealogy of actual grand sheiks, sheikesses, members demonstrating in the temple back during the 70s and actually before then.
For that. Right.
So we I give you honor for that, but I just wanted to put that out there. If you can learn from us, praise Allah. If not, you might just want to turn us off and move on to the next whatever
Channel.
thing it is. Yeah.
Right.
So and it'll be no hard feelings. We
At
we
all.
we praise Allah because we practice love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice.
That's
You
right.
may you may not just be on the same frequency that we're on, or we might not be on the same frequency, energy, and vibration that you're on. So praise Allah.
Praise the Lord. And I'm glad you said that, Sheik. Because again, we're not in competition with anyone. We
Nah,
learn from everyone.
nah.
And we give, honors to all who are, doing their part to give and share their portion. So, praise the Lord. Go ahead.
One more thing. I don't
Yeah.
keep. I don't keep.
No, it's okay.
The blessing is Mo. A few times in my lifetime being in the Moorish Science Temple of America, uh, going to the trek through time, which is
Mhm.
actually Moorish American Remembrance Day.
That's right.
Well, and it's now, I believe it is a week. Going to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania on October the 14th before our convention starts. Um, the Grand Sheik Azim Hopkins Bay hosts the Moorish American Remembrance Day, and who it was started by his father, may Allah bless him,
Islam.
uh, Grand Sheik Ronald Hopkins Bay, and his mother, which I call a mother love, right?
Hmm.
Um, and the Hopkins Bay family is due honor for the wonderful work that they do with transmitting the history of what happened in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, right?
Right.
Um, and this is what put me on to even thinking about things a certain way. Because oftentimes, and this is no disrespect to anybody, people want to just start with the Civil War.
Right.
But man, our history goes
Predates
way,
that.
yeah, it predates it, especially here in the Americas and for that matter around the world. But praise Allah.
Praise a lot. I'm glad you said that, Sheik, because we don't look at history from a linear scope.
Right.
That's what you're going to kind of see. So tonight we're going to be presenting some, again, some sources pertaining to pre-colonial Moorish history. But we're also going to focus on the colonial aspect as well. If you have any questions at all or comments, please keep them respectful, but feel free to put them in the chat. This is an interactive chat, and we do answer questions, and sometimes if we don't know something, we will say we just don't know. But we're pretty astute for the most part. So if you're just coming in, we're focusing on the word America. A lot of people have the notion that this continent, which is known as America, not the United States, because when you read the Resurrection book, the Grand Sheik Timothy Dingley, he has a portion in there talking about the Aboriginal period, and he asks us to locate and identify the mass of the United States. But right now, we're going to focus specifically on America. So here we go. So again, this is 1848, Webster's Dictionary, and we're dealing with the term America. I'm going to zoom in so everyone can see. And it's very interesting because, let me zoom out just a little bit. When you look at this, let me make it a little bit bigger. When you look at this term America, one may say, well, America is the United States. Others may say, well, America is North America, South America, and Central America. But when you study or when you look at this definition, and again, this is 1848 Webster's Dictionary of America. According to this dictionary version of the American in the English language, it says America, a noun, and then you have in parentheses, it says from Amerigo Vespucci, a Florentine, and that's Italian, who pretended to have first discovered the Western continent. So that lets the cat out
He
of the
did what
bag.
he do, Mo. He
He
did what?
pretended. He pretended. So no, let's rewind this because now we have to really think now, Sheik. The prophet says, if I can get you to think, you can save yourself. He says, from Amerigo Vespucci, a Florentine who pretended to have first discovered the Western continent, talking about the landmass in which we live right here. And
Mm-hmm.
again, as we stated, we're going to be on this topic for a few segments. So we may not get through everything tonight, but we're going to get through some points. It says, one of the great continents first discovered by Sebastian Cabot. Now, this theory of Cabot discovering the landmass known as America, the prophet lets us know that the ancient name of this landmass is Amexium. I've heard theories of Sebastian Cabot, and these are rather new theories. But what I found interesting about this is Webster himself is a man of letters, and he can't really pinpoint as to the origin of the name or the origin of the name of the landmass called America. He's
Mm-hmm.
speculating at this point. He says July 8th, OS 1498, and by Columbus or Cristobal Colon. So that's Columbus, and we're going to get into him in a minute. It says August 1st, the same year. So the same year Sebastian Cabot is to allegedly have found or discovered this nation, or this landmass, excuse me, known as America. You have this guy by the name of Christopher Columbus or Cristobal Colon, which was his actual name, allegedly described in the same year. It says it extends from the 18th degree of north to the 54th degree of south latitude, and from the 35th to the 156th degree of longitude from Greenwich. In Greenwich, we're dealing
Oh,
with Greenwich, England.
yeah. In previous shows,
We
we've
talked about it.
established the fact where they move the demarcation line, right,
That's
or
right.
the prime meridian line where they moved it. So now, when you're using context clues, you're seeing in previous shows what we're talking about is coming up again.
That's right.
Praise
So here
Allah.
we go. Praise Allah. And thank you for putting that point out, Sheik. It says, being about 9,000 miles in length, its breadth at Darien is narrow, about 45 miles, but at the northern extremity is nearly 4,000 miles from Darien to the north. The continent is called North America, and to the south is called South America. But when you look at it on the map, there is no such thing as a North, South, and Central America because it's all one continent.
That's
And it's
right.
interesting that they're dealing with the issue of Darien right here because in local times or in modern times, this issue of the Darien jungle has been a big issue, and that's
Hmm.
over near Panama. So you're seeing that, and you're going to see in a minute as the Prophet Noble Drew Ali he makes reference to the natives of San Salvador and various other countries of these individuals being Muslims. We're going to blow this out, right?
Oh,
It
oh, oh.
says,
You also can't forget about, even though Canada is
"Yep,
called Canada,
come on,
it's still a part of America,
still
North
part of
America
America."
to be specific.
That's right. That's right. Now this like now, and that's the only point I wanted to bring out in America. Now I know some people they draw, um, they go to this definition. I've seen videos in regards to American, but we're not going to get into that today. Even
Hmm.
though it's interesting because, and I'll read it. It says a native of America, originally applied to the Aboriginals, and that's that
Hmm.
term we used in previous shows, the
Hmm.
Aboriginal period or copper-colored races, and we know that man cannot be Negro, black, or colored, found here by the Europeans. So these individuals were found here by the Europeans. So if they were
That's
found here by the Europeans, if they were known as Americans, that that tells me, just doing some deductive reasoning, that the European can have not came up or coined the phrase American. It has to have a more ancient meaning, or it has to have a deeper meaning or a more profound meaning of this.
that's
And it's
right.
interesting because many of our people don't want to be American. They rather be, and I'm not speaking radical, but they're quick to say that I'm African. But we're going to get into that in another segment as well. All
Right.
right. We're going to get into that because people need to know that they need to know and understand what's happening. But it says, but now applied to the descendants of Europeans born in America, especially the inhabitants of the United States. The name America must always exalt as the pride of patriotism, and that's a quote by Washington. Go figure. But
Hmm.
what I found interesting, I'm gonna minimize this. What I found interesting about this term America, right?
Hmm.
The term United States is not in that dictionary.
Right.
And then when I investigated it, it said that the term United States was first coined September 9th, 1776. But again, this 1848 dictionary didn't have the United States at all in it. So I'm thinking to myself that that term actually came in a later date. That's just me. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
you
I,
want to
I
share
would
anything,
I would
Rashid?
agree with that.
Yeah. All right. So let's move forward. So I also made mention that we were going to of course, as always, we were always going to pivot to the works of the Prophet Noble Drew Ali because the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, he gives us the question and the answer. And we're not going to read the entire portion of this, but if you have a copy of the Moorish literature, you would know where we're coming from. This is the Industrious Acts of the Muslims by the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. And I'm just going to read the first portion. And you also, if you have a Holy Quran, the Moorish Science Temple of America, you'll find this on page 3 as well. The bottom half or the bottom section of our Holy Quran, the Moorish Science Temple of America, affectionately known as the Circle 7 to some Moors. It says, the industrious acts of the Muslims by Prophet Noble Drew Ali. The industrious acts of of the Muslims of Northwest and Southwest Africa. All right. It says, these are the Moabites, the Hamathites, the Canaanites, who were driven out of the land of Canaan by Joshua and received permission of the pharaohs of Egypt to settle in that portion of Egypt. In later years, they formed themselves kingdoms. These kingdoms are called this day Morocco, Algiers, Tunis, Tripoli, etc., or etc. And then I want to just go down just a little bit more. It says they originated the beauties of the Alhambra, and to the unpracticed eye, the light relives in the fanciful arabesque which covers the walls of the Alhambra appear to have been sculptured by hand with a minute of paint, a patient labor, and an exhaustible variety of detail, yet a general uniformity and harmony of design truly astonishing. And this may be especially said of the vaults of the cupolas, which are wrought, meaning work, like honeycombs and frostwork of the stalactites. Now I'm gonna stop
Mhm.
right there because the Prophet Noble Drali, he's given us a visual representation of the work, not only of the architectural work of our ancient forefathers, but one thing I want to point out, right,
Mhm.
as you mentioned earlier, Sheik, I went to school for history, etc. And when I went to school for history, there was a class that I had taken, and the class was called Ethnographic Showcases. And
Mhm.
in this class, I received a packet about this thick. I mentioned in earlier shows, and then it had various different topics that as I continue to matriculate through the Moorish Science Temple of America, it makes more sense to me. So some of these
Mhm.
words that I heard before came back up in my educational process in the temple. So when you see us doing this show, everything that we are presenting on this show are things that we learn as well as teach in a physical temple. So we're not running on our own juice. I'm not making reference to the prophet as if I'm just some rogue individual. I'm letting the viewers and the audience know that what we're presenting are sources that we present on Sundays during our more Sunday schools, sometimes on Fridays, depending on the ethos of the demonstration. But of course, those days are giving praises to Allah and any other respective meeting, or just you and I, Sheik, when we talk to each other and converse, we share ideas and we share thoughts, and we also share sources and documents. So the next document I want to pull up is a very interesting document, and I'm not going in any specific order. So please, for those who are listening, please forgive me for not going in any specific order. But I want to focus on the Pope, right? And the
Mhm.
reason I want to focus on the Pope is because I want to paint I want to give everybody a specific idea of what's happening, right? Because yeah, we just went from 1848. I talked a little bit about 1776, but now I want to focus on 1493. And in 1493, what you're going to find is, as it pulls up real soon, you're going to find that you had what was called the Papal Bull, right?
That's
You
right.
had a papal bull that was created by this pope, and this was Pope Alexander the Sixth. But what I also found interesting was alongside this papal bull in the same year on May 4th, 1893, you had a demarcation bull which granted Spain possession of lands discovered by this man called Columbus. Now we
Hold
just
on. What
read,
in what country was that, Mo?
oh, that was Spain.
Spain.
That was
Okay.
Spain.
All right.
That was Spain. So again, you're looking at this man, Alexander Calvert, you're looking at Christopher Columbus, and then you also look, and we just discredited Amerigo Vespucci. The man said he pretended to find something, so of course it isn't named by him. But we want to look at this because what you're going to find in this document was the Pope asserting the right for Spain and Portugal to a degree to colonize, convert, and enslave the Moorish people. And I did say Moorish people because we're going to show the correlation between the Moorish people on that part of the hemisphere, as well as those of us who had already been here practicing Islam in this part of the world before Columbus and before our brothers and sisters who came over here as well. So I
And
just want to read a little bit of it. But go ahead,
and
Sheikh.
in previous shows, we showed a map of the Moors who existed in what they presently call Africa,
That's
and
right.
we showed a map where they specifically lived on the eastern seaboard. We showed a map that shows that we were here in previous shows. If you go back and look at it.
And there was some wise person, some wise individual a while ago, right? They asked me, well, can you pull up a map that shows Moors in the country, et cetera? Well, and I'm gonna go back to this in a minute, but I wanted to do this real quick because I'm glad you brought that point up about the map, right?
Uh-huh.
Um, so the joke is on them because the whole idea of countries and land masses with physical borders and stuff like that, you didn't have that until you start dealing with the era of colonization,
That's
which
right.
actually existed in this part of the world and then existed over there. But
Yeah,
since you wanted me to pull the map up, I pulled the map up. So here we go. Because for whatever reason, they didn't believe that the term Moors or Moorish people was on the map. But here's a map right here for you. And let me zoom in. And I think this is actually the same map sheet. It's just a more defined one. This is
Okay.
over on the continent of Africa. And we also pull one up for America if need be as well. But what you'll
Hmm.
find is, and you're going to see this, you're going to see this actually detailed in what we're about to express and share in more sources. You had different groups of Moors, and these different groups of Moors were actually part of this same Moorish empire or the same group. So you have the Terraza Moors, you have the Bracana Moors, and then it just says Moors. But guess what? The Wolof and all these other different groups, they
Yeah,
were
that's right.
still under the Moorish Empire as well.
Hmm.
They
Hmm.
were still under the Moorish Empire. But
Hmm.
I digress off of that point. I just wanted to raise that point
And,
because go ahead, shoot.
and that papal bull, it's interesting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you look at dates, 1 year after Christopher Colon or Christopher Columbus sails the ocean blue, which was in 1492, they teach this in schools, right?
Right.
It is that you found or discovered a papal bull talking about colonization, converting, and enslaving uh, Aboriginal people or people who didn't look like them, didn't practice their religion, and so on.
And
So,
here we go. So to hit to that point, right?
mhm,
Because you just said it. So we're getting into it. Let's just get into a little bit of it. It says AD 1493, the Pope asserts rights to colonize, convert, and enslave. Now, I mentioned the demarcation bull granting possession of the land. So it's a land grab, it's a mind war, it's a conversion of, and if you're converting somebody, that means they had to be of a specific um, religion or a specific creed, divine creed, and an enslavement of them as well. We're going to look at that as well. It says, Pope Alexander VI issues a papal bull or decree, inter cartera, in which he authorizes Spain and Portugal to colonize the Americas in its native, another word for native is, well, the correct term is aboriginal, peoples as subjects. The decree asserts the right of Spain and Portugal to colonize, convert, and enslave. It also justifies the enslavement of Africans. It says, and I quote, out of our own soul largeness and certain knowledge, and out of the fullness of our apostolic power, by the authority of Almighty God conferred upon us and blessed Peter and the vicarship of Jesus the Christ, which we hold on earth, do we by tenor of these presents, should had any of said islands have been found by your envoys. So he's talking about the envoys of Columbus. And
mhm,
captains give, grant, and assign to you and your heirs, successors, kings of Castile and Leon, forever together with all their dominions, cities, camps, places, and villages, and all rights, jurisdictions, and appurtenance, all islands of mainlands found to be discovered and to be discovered towards the west, meaning this part of the world, and south, meaning the part that was south of this part of the world, or this part of America, excuse me, by drawing and establishing a line from the Arctic Pole, namely the North Pole, to the Antarctic Pole, namely the South, North and South America, North, South, and Central America. No matter whether the said mainlands and islands are found and to be found in the direction of India or towards any other quarter, the said line to be distant, Verdi, let me see, 100 leagues towards the west and south from any of the islands commonly known as the Azores or Cape Verde.
mm,
With this proviso, meaning provision, however, that none of the islands of the mainland found and to be found discovered to be and to be discovered beyond the said line, the west and south being actual possession of any Christian king or prince upon the birthday of their Lord Jesus Christ, just past from which the present year 1140, excuse me, 1493 began. So they were allowing them to take possessions of lands carte blanche as long as they didn't belong to any other Christian leader at that point in
mhm,
time. And
mhm,
it says, and we make a point in depth to you and your said heirs, successors, lords over them, meaning the people who are already here, full and free power, authority, and jurisdiction of every kind, end quote, Pope Alexander VI, into Cartera, theme, native rights, region, Caribbean, Southeast, and Southwest.
mm.
Yep. Wow.
Man, you can't make this up, Mo.
Can't make it up. Can't make it up. Now, I found something very interesting. You read, Brother J.A. Rogers' book, Nation
Mhm,
Knows No Color Line. And one thing I love about that book is the fact that, Brother J.A. Rogers, he makes reference to the Moorish influence in England and so on and so
mhm,
forth.
mhm,
But one thing that most people don't know, well, I ain't gonna say don't know, but they don't realize and recognize that there was a mass deportation of Moorish people from England to Spain and Portugal. And many of those people were actually deported over here and elsewhere as well.
mhm.
Um, and I'll get into that in a minute. But um, another document, right? So we're dealing with the Moorish influence here in America. Again, found it, not found, but obtained this document when I was in college. So it has a lot of it
Oh,
has a lot of annotating in it. Go ahead, Sheik.
yeah, and I like to say, so when our ancestors found it, so we can, for those who might say, um, try to use in the Moorish literature, those who go to college as hoop jumpers and all these other things, the prophet wasn't talking about the people who he was talking about a specific people. Let me say that.
Right.
Also, when you look at the liberal arts or any concept about a university, um, my wife, praise Allah for her, we were doing some reading and she was like, Islam Mo, she was like, she said, did you know that when the Moors took over Spain, they established 17 universities? And I knew about two. I ain't know it was 17 of them. She was like, yeah, Mo, it was 17 of them. I said,
Wow.
wow. So when you talk about university system, we, the Moors or our ancestors, are the originators of the university system.
hmm
And in later shows, we're going to share how that system was transmitted into Egypt and the regalia that um, most college students graduate in is actually of Islamic origin,
That's right.
which leads back to us establishing universities. And I mean, since the beginning of time, but for sure, definitely universities in Egypt, universities, the 17 universities that were in Spain and various other universities around the world. And one of the greatest universities, the University of Timbuktu.
That's right.
Praise Allah.
Praise Allah. And thank you for that, Sheik.
Mhm.
So somebody said Trump. Yeah, I mean, hey man,
Hey, it is.
it is
Listen,
what it is.
Allah is our God.
Right.
So if people want Trump to be their God,
That's
that's
perfectly
on you.
fine.
Allah is our God.
Yeah, we ain't tripping off
That's
of
it. Yeah.
that. Motor. I like that. But yeah, we dealing with America, man. So, for that person, that individual, welcome to the Moorish Sense Channel. Just keep it respectful.
Praise
But
Allah.
all is well. I mean, hey man, it's a turn of the tide. So let's get back to the show. So dealing with Hernan Cortés, right? Or program, because it isn't a show. This is not a show. The prophet says he who fixes himself on show, loses himself, paraphrasing. So we're not showing off anything like that. We're not bragging and boasting.
Right.
But ultimately, we're just sharing with our brothers and sisters. And by brothers and sisters, we're just talking about those both Moorish and those who they want to just know a little bit more about who we are.
Right.
So
Right.
this letter right here is a letter. It's a letter to Charles V. It's coming from Hernan Cortés, and I'm going to zoom in. And I found it very interesting. So don't mind the note at the top with the scribble that says 1400s. This is actually 1600. It's a 1600 record. I wrote that again. I was jotting stuff down. This is years ago. We're talking about maybe 2013. So didn't know what was in my possession. Didn't know what I had until I came into the temple. But I was told to annotate and to go through this document to see how Hernan Cortés was describing the people who were living here at that time. Now, of
Okay.
course, dealing with ethnographic showcases, they talking about eugenics. They talking about Walter Ashby Plecker. They talking
Okay.
about Joachim Blumenbach. They're talking
Okay.
about all these different things that we go through on this program and in the temple. But one thing I found interesting. So I'm just going to read the top part and then we get down, and I'm not going to go into everything. But it says in a formal paragraph, let me zoom in just a little bit for the viewers, and I'll move it around. It says in a formal paragraph of this letter, we said that we are sending an account of this land to your majesties, talking about Charles V of Spain, may be better informed to its peculiarities, its riches, and the people who possess it, in the beliefs and rites, rites, and ceremonies which they hold, right?
Hmm.
I'm only going to read this next paragraph and I'm going to go down for the sake of time. It says, the land in which the name of your majesty we now occupy stretches from some 50 leagues on either side of the town. The coast is entirely flat, and on the sea shore, there are sandy beaches stretching for miles and more. Inland, behind the sand dunes, that land is also flat, comprising very fine meadowlands, and riverbanks. Such cannot be better in all of Spain. So he's saying this land is so fertile, this land, meaning America, this land is so fertile, this land is so beautiful that, the land, anything they have over there in Spain isn't even comparable to what he's seeing right now, right? He says it's pleasing to the eye, moreover, and that's what I just said, as they are fertile and producing all manner of crops, and very well looked, of the easy access, all kinds of herds being found both grazing and used as beasts of burden. So let's keep it moving down, because I want to get into what he sees in regards to the people. He says the natives who inhabit the land of Cosmo in the land of Yucatan. So we're talking about Mexico, right? That part of Mexico that's close to Belize. He says from his northern point, so the northern point where we are settled now, are middle of height and well proportioned. Talking about the people being well proportioned and middle of height. So they're kind of tall, but they're well proportioned. Except that in our district, they disfigured their faces in various ways, some piercing the ears and introducing large. And he says this isn't me saying it. This is Cortez and his guy saying it. Extremely ugly ornaments, others in the lower part of their nose and upper lip, in which they insert large circular stones having the appearance of mirrors, and others sticking piercings, the thick underlip right through the teeth, and hanging from there, round stones or pieces of gold so heavy that they drag the lip down, giving extraordinarily repulsive appearance. Now, this is the part that's interesting. He says they wear clothes, they wear as clothes of kind of highly colored shawls. The men wear breech clouts, and on the top half of their body, cloaks finely worked and painted in the fashion of Moorish draperies. I didn't type that. That's what he's saying verbatim. Moorish draperies. He says the women wear highly colored robes. Sounds familiar.
Mm-hmm.
Reaching from the waist to their feet, and others cover only the breasts, meaning modesty, all the rest of the body being uncovered. But the women of high rank wear bodices of fine cotton, very loose fitting, cut and embroidered after the fashion of the vestment worn by our bishops and abbots. Now, their bishops and abbots, they got it from the Moors over there in
Mm-hmm.
their specific portion of that area of Spain. They took money of the custom wear and garb and things like that and attributed it to themselves. He says their food is composed of maize, meaning corn, and such cereals are to be found on the other islands of the Patucaya, almost exactly similar to that eaten in Cuba, except they roast instead of making it into bread. In addition, they have whatever they have obtained by fishing or hunting. They also breed large numbers of hens similar to those of the mainland, which are as big as peacocks. There are a few large towns very plausibly laid out. The houses in those parts which can obtain stone are rough masonry and mortar, the rooms being low and small, very much after the Moorish fashion. And I'm gonna stop right there. You want to add anything to that sheet?
Yeah. Well, what we're starting to see, right? Because I'm glad you talked about ethnography showcasing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because when you get into that terminology, basically ethnography showcasing is showing something in a larger context, not just in with blinders on. It's showing it
No,
in a
man.
larger context.
That's right.
So once again, that's what you're reading from the diaries of Cortez. You're seeing that in his own definitions, uh, and we know and understand that he was a conquistador.
Right.
Everything is leading back to Spain, and when we conquered, and we ruled for from 711 to 1492, and
That's
then
right.
once that stronghold was lost in Spain, then 1 year later they come to the Americas.
Now, shit, you got your Koran around you because I left mine
Oh
on my
yeah,
book.
yeah, yeah. I got it. Yep.
Can you go to, if you don't mind, would you mind going to the divine origin of the Asiatic nations and just reading it?
Okay, sure.
Thank you, Sheik.
Divine origin of the Asiatic
Yes, sir.
nations with an S.
With an S.
This is chapter 45 for those who would like to read along with us,
That's right.
or go back and check. It says the divine origin of the Asiatic nations. The fallen sons and daughters of the Asiatic nation of North America need to learn to love instead of hate, and to know their higher self and lower self. This is the uniting of the Holy Koran of Mecca for teaching and instructing all Moorish Americans, etc. The key of civilization was and is in the hands of the Asiatic nations, the Moorish, who were the ancient Moabites and the founders of the holy city of Mecca, the Egyptians, who are the Hammatites, and of a direct descendant of Mizraim, the Arabians, the seed of Hagar, Japanese and Chinese, the Hindus of India, the descendants of the ancient Canaanites, Hittites, and Moabites from the land of Canaan, the Asiatic nations and countries in North, South, and Central America, the Moorish Americans and Mexicans of North America,
That's right.
Brazilians, Argentinians, and Chileans in South America, Colombians, Nicaraguans, and the natives of San Salvador in Central America, etc. All of these are Muslims.
Islam. Thank you, Sheik. Now, I want to focus on the natives of San Salvador, right?
Okay.
As a prophet, he mentioned all those other countries, but he said the natives of San Salvador.
Hmm.
Now, I'm looking at, now, when I first looked at San Salvador, of course, my mind went to El Salvador.
That's right. That's what
And
it
then
used
when
to
I
be
started,
called. El Salvador.
El Salvador, but it's another San Salvador as well because I
Oh,
was investigating and I was like, okay, San
okay.
Salvador. So again, going back to that definition, that Webster, and I'm not using them as a point, but I'm looking at dates and I'm looking at discrepancies, right?
Hmm.
In that definition that we read earlier, it said that this man Abbott and Columbus, they found or not found, they came upon this landmass known as America at the same time in 1498. However, again, going back to the documents that I had received and I had did some investigation over, in my younger years, I stumbled across this document, right? And this
Hmm.
document coming from the same class dealing with that letter of Cortez when Cortez was identifying, wasn't alluding, wasn't saying they were Negroes, weren't saying they were black, but was saying these people over here were Moorish, they dressed Moorish, their homes were in the same Moorish style, etc. Pretty much alluding to the fact that we had already been over here in these
Hmm.
shores, right?
Hmm. That's right.
This letter was interesting because this was Christopher Columbus's letter in 1493 to Ferdinand and Isabella. Now, when you're
Oh,
dealing with Ferdinand and
that's who kicked the Moors out of Spain, right?
that's right. So now
Oh,
we're
okay.
rewinding. We're doing some rewinding right now, right? We playing it backwards, right? So they actually did the expulsion as you just mentioned, she. But let's get into this letter, right? Because the prophet said the natives of San Salvador, and I'm gonna, give the viewers and don't take my word for it. Look it up when you get a chance. But San Salvador, El Salvador was known as San Salvador, but it's another San Salvador as well. And I'm gonna tell you what it is in a minute, or let you give it to you in a minute. It says
Mm-hmm.
Christopher Columbus's letter to King Ferdinand and Isabella, March 1493. I'm only going to read a portion, right? It says, "Sir, as I know you will be pleased at the great victory in which our Lord has crowned my voyage." So he's not talking about the great God Allah. He's not talking about Jehovah. He's not talking about Yah or whatever name you choose to call the great God. He's saying Ferdinand is his Lord.
That's
That's
right.
what he's saying. Has crowned my voyage. I write this to you, from which you will learn how in 33 days I passed from the Canary Islands, which is off the coast of Africa, to the Indies with the fleet with the most illustrious, which the most illustrious king and queen our sovereigns gave to me. For all I know, he could be making this up, but I'm gonna just keep going, right? It says, "And there I found many islands filled with people innumerable." So the people were already here. The
That's
people
right.
were already here in America. And when I say America, I'm not talking about the United States of America, because that we're not. This is predating the United States. We're talking about America, not
Mm-hmm.
after Amerigo Vespucci, but America.
Mm-hmm.
And of all of them, I have taken possession for their highness. So what was that possession was to do what, sheep? It was to colonize,
Colonize,
convert,
to convert and enslave.
and enslave. So he's doing his mission. He's out here doing that evil mission. And it says, "I've taken possession for their highness by proclamation made and with the royal standard unfurled, and no opposition was offered to me. To the first island which I found, I gave the name San Salvador,
Mm.
in remembrance of the divine majesty who had marvelously bestowed all this. The Indians call it Guaninana." He said the
Mm-hmm.
Indians.
Mm-hmm.
And when he's talking about Indians, he's talking about Moors or Moorish people.
And we established that also in a previous show
That's right.
when it was Shakespeare was talking about Indians and determined that the word Indian was replaced for Moor.
Yeah, that's right.
So yeah, if you go back to previous shows.
About 3 episodes ago, if I believe.
Mm-hmm.
It says, "To the second I gave the name Alasa de Santa Maria de Concepcion. To the third I gave Ferdinina, and to the fourth Isabella. To the fifth Isla Juana, and to each one I gave a new name." So he's renaming the landmass. However, he said the first name he gave was San Salvador. However,
Mm-hmm.
the Aboriginal people had a different name. Now, San Salvador is actually, if you look it up and don't believe me, San Salvador is the Bahamas Islands.
Okay.
That's the Bahamas.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if you know anything about the Bahamas is right off the coast of Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And if you know anything about Florida, Florida was a really strong Moorish stronghold.
That's right.
Florida, South Carolina,
That's right.
Georgia,
That's
North
right.
Carolina, pretty much this whole area,
That's right.
Maryland,
That's right.
Virginia. You understand what I'm saying? But specifically when you're dealing with this area of San Salvador, the Prophet Noble Drali is letting us know that the natives of San Salvador predating Columbus. And I'm not making any speculation on this because I understand where people may say, "Oh, he's talking about El Salvador." Okay, praise Allah. But just again doing some deductive reasoning and looking at the
Mm-hmm.
proximity and looking at what was happening in Florida. And if you study Florida, there's been articles that have been developed that will let you know that the same amount of sediment or the same texture of sediment, excuse me, that you find off the coast of Florida is off the coast of Africa. So the
Mm-hmm.
Prophet Obadiah Ali, he's letting us know that our brothers and sisters, those who we find in the Caribbean, as they call it, he's talking about the natives of San Salvador, meaning the Bahamas.
And look, this goes to a group of people, right,
Mm-hmm.
that lived in the hills. Once the British colonized those places, they lived in the hills, and guess, and they started calling them dreadlocks,
Come on now.
but they are actually locks, right?
That's right.
And they were the Maroons, and the reason they called them dreadlocks was because at night the way that they would form and fashion their hair, they would when the British and stuff would come into the hills, they could stand beside trees and things of this nature. And when the Europeans came, they would they wouldn't even recognize that they were by the trees because of how their hair were and things of this nature, and because it was so dark. And when they were at warfare, and the British and things of this nature, they were losing wars, so they start calling the individuals their hairstyles. They start calling them dreads
That's right.
because they dreaded going into the hills at night during the
That's right.
time of when they were fighting. So
Mhm.
and and listen, the Maroons.
Maroon, right.
Okay, so I mean, all of the evidence is there. And if you want to say, well, how can you get that? Well, I mean, they tell you they play with words, A-E-I-O-U, sometimes Y.
That's
They
right.
took they took the they took a O out and changed the other O to a A, and then added some other uh another vowel and syllable on to the end of the word. So, and we know this because when you look at most Webster dictionaries, in our era time, we know about Merriam-Webster.
Marion, right. And I
Oh,
know,
well, who was Merriam-Webster's father?
right.
I think you're gonna find out that it might have been a man by the name of Noah
Noah
Webster.
Webster. That's right.
Right. I think if you do a deep investigation on him, man, you understand. So praise Allah.
Praise Allah. And that's a good point you brought out, She, because I forgot all about, and most people look at the Maroons and they think about Jamaica, but you had different communities. Even
That's
here
right.
in the United States, you had the
South
Great Dismal.
America, didn't you? Didn't you have
Yeah,
some in South America? I
yeah.
mean, excuse me, South Carolina.
South Carolina, Virginia, you had the Great, which still the Great Dismal Swamp, which separates North Carolina and Virginia, which still exists to this day, and
Mhm.
Louisiana as well.
Louisiana, I was good. Yes, yes, indeed.
Louisiana as well. So let's get into this next document. I'm just going to read a little bit and then I'm going to pull the second portion up. So this is coming from Turks, Moors, and Moriscos in early America. And it's by a brother by the name of Umar Fuqua Abdul Adela, PhD. He's talking about Sir Francis Drake's liberated galley of so-called slaves in the lost colony of Roanoke. But I found some points that the brother made was very interesting. I'm going to read this portion. I'm going to pull the second half up because I didn't upload this part
Okay.
to you. But nevertheless, just please follow along. Those who are listening. Somebody said, who taught Drew Ali Moorish science? That's a good question.
Hold on.
She
Who taught Drew Ali more
Moorish
science?
science. The brother Rasan Allah said that.
Well, Rasan Allah, basically, more science means more sense and more insight. So, what I'm going to say is that nobody actually taught the prophet more science. However, what I can say is that there were individuals who taught Prophet Noble Drew Ali Islamism,
Come on.
which now they translated into our Islam. And in all actuality, if you do a deeper investigation, it was not called our Islam, it was called ill Islam.
Islam.
So that's going to take us off a topic, but stay tuned and tune into more shows because we will go into some of the people that Prophet Noble Drew Ali met. And Islam is an ancient religion.
That's right.
It's not anything that started with Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. It just wasn't called Islam before the, if you will, the current Arabic language, because the first script was the Kufic script and not the script that we see in the Quran of Mecca
That's
at this
right.
point in time. So we'll get into that at a later date. Islam. Hopefully that satisfied part of your question. Please tune back in so we can get into it.
Yeah.
Islamism.
Islam. And we did put a survey out. So we did have a survey with a few questions. I
Mm-hmm.
think one of the questions was the spirit of Islam. So, we'll delve into that.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
brother
yeah.
Rasan Allah, okay, praise Allah, you're aware of it. That's a blessing, man. So again, the topic today is going to be pre-colonial Moorish history. So that's what we're going to be focusing the topic on. So let's just continue with this. We're not deflecting or negating your question, but we want to stay on topic so that the
Absolutely.
other 21 viewers who have been tuning in, they can follow along. So praise Allah. So getting back to it. So this is Turks, Moors, and Moriscos in early America, right? And it says, and I'm going to pull it up in a minute, it says, dealing with Sir Francis Drake. It says Sir Francis Drake from 1540 to 1596, the famous seaman, discoverer, and privateer, brought at least 200 Muslims identified as Turks and Moors, which included Moriscos, to the newly established colony of Roanoke
Mm-hmm.
on the coast of present-day North Carolina. And I found that part interesting because when you study and investigate North Carolina's terrain, North Carolina doesn't have a port. There are no port. I mean, you have Kill Devil. I mean, not Kill Devil Hills. You have what is it called? I can't think of what it's called, but it's
Somewhere around Jacksonville, because it's a
Jacksonville, yeah, and down
yeah,
there
because
where Cyrus Ford,
it's a marine base somewhere around in that area where
yeah,
they are close to. I don't know how close
Kitty,
to
is it Kitty
the
Hawk? It's
sea.
one of those areas,
Yeah,
but
I know.
I'm not neither here nor there. But what you'll find is, even to this day, they don't have any harbors, they don't have any ports and things of that nature. So when you're dealing with the Roanoke colony itself, what I found interesting about this is that the document says or alludes to the fact that he brought 200 people to the Roanoke colony.
Mm,
However, when you look at it, from present day, even back then, to me, it may be a little bit off. I'm thinking Virginia, quite possibly.
mm-hmm,
But the Roanoke colony, ultimately, it says it's North Carolina. It says
mm-hmm,
the Roanoke settlement was England's first American colony and constitutes the first chapter of the English colonial history in the New World, which ultimately became the United States. Now, let me pull this up.
mm-hmm.
All right, so dealing with Francis Drake, and then we can get into some more of the pre-colonial history. Pulling it up now, and this is the second half of that. All right, praise Allah. Here we go. Zoom in. Zoom in a little bit more. All right. So up this top part right here, when I was annotating, it was making mention of the fact that many of the people that Drake had been coming in contact with,
Uh-huh.
10 to 20% of those individuals, they said, had Islamic roots. And it
Wow.
said that a lot of them were identified as so-called Moriscos from Spain and Portugal who had been
Mm-hmm.
forcibly converted to Christianity in the 16th century. He said
Wow.
that two groups existed side by side. You had in the Spanish and Portuguese colonies, but in English colonies, however, persons of Moorish or Moriscan background were rare, and Africans constituted by far the larger and more visible of the two populations. Now, the reason why I say this specific source is a little choppy because the man tries to make distinctions. But one thing I found interesting, he started going into the Melungeons and the Lumbees of North Carolina, and we'll
Okay.
get into that in a minute. So he says Drake's liberation of the Muslim galley slaves shows that other Muslims, people diverse backgrounds, were also present in Spanish colonies and constituted an unexpected element of the Muslim presence in colonial America. There were undoubtedly other war galleys in the Spanish colonial fleet, like those that Drake encountered in Cartagena. And when he's dealing with the Spanish colonial fleet, he's talking about those areas in which was known as New Spain. So we're talking about Florida primarily,
Mm-hmm.
and also the areas in the Caribbean. It says such ships were essential to Spanish naval power because they could maneuver more effectively in battle than sail power ships and made lethal use of heavy artillery mounted upon them. It says Turks and North African Moors taken captive in war were likely to end up as galley slaves, so it is not surprising that Drake chanced upon hundreds of them in the Caribbean. So again, going back to the natives that had already existed during that time, those who were caught and bought, as we taught and we learned in the great book of the resurrection, that some people were bought here, some people had
Some
already
people
been
talk.
here, and they were
Mm-hmm.
caught here, right? It says but slavery in the galleys was also a more common fate of thousands of Spanish and Portuguese Moriscos who were convicted of heresy, usually clandestine and Islamic practices, before tribunals of the Inquisition. And some of the Moors that Drake liberated were probably Moriscos, Iberian Moors. So we're talking about Tunis, Morocco, Algiers, etc., establishing those kingdoms, but not just there, but also here, who had ran
Mm-hmm.
afoul of the Inquisition. It says We have no conclusive evidence that any of Drake's liberated Turks, Moors, and possibly Moriscos remained behind at the Roanoke colony and established roots in America. But the mysterious Melungeons of Appalachia and their cousins, the Lumbees of North Carolina, trace their roots to Roanoke and probably have the greatest claim to Drake's legacy. Both Melungeons and Lumbees antedate British settlement in America and make up the unique populations that are distinctive from so-called whites, so-called blacks, and so-called African Americans. I mean Native Americans, excuse me. For centuries, and I say so-called, for centuries, Melungeons and Lumbees have proudly identified themselves as Portuguese and have been widely regarded to have Moorish roots. You want to hit on that, sheet?
Now, this is the prophet, right? Is not, a lot of people have misunderstood, right, and think that the prophet is just trying to take us back to Africa, right? Yes,
Right.
in the mind, however, with the prophet Noble Drew Ali is establishing and has established that we are a global people,
That's right.
right? Because in some earlier readings that you were reading, they used the 50 leagues, right? That is a terminology that uh naval navigators use when they talk about nautical miles.
That's right.
And when you talk about the word Moor also means navigator. And we know we were the first shipbuilders and we were the first to navigate the seven physical seas. And when you're talking about names like Melungeon, Lumbee, Weesorts,
Come on.
Redbones,
That's right.
and the list goes on, these are the names that our people were utilizing to separate themselves from the slave labels. But unfortunately, because of lost, I would say lost language, these are the only ways that they could identify themselves. And the prophet, when he came, he knew these particular things because there were records of this information around. Unfortunately, people, they shun and don't get shun away from and try to get into don't get into the actual where some of these words and terminologies come from. So that's pretty. Oh, and we do know of a president that was a Melungeon, and
That's
we're
right.
not gonna go into him, but
I
yeah,
think we went over them before.
yeah, we went over it before. Yeah,
Yeah,
we went over it before. Praise the
that's
Lord.
right. Praise Allah, but we're not gonna go into them tonight. All right, so not gonna belabor the point, but I want to just hit on a couple of more points, Sheik, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I'm on.
And for our viewers and listeners, we hope that you're getting something out of what we're sharing tonight. We pray that a lot of you getting something out of something that we're sharing tonight. I
Mhm.
want to go to the second half of this, and then after that, I want to pull up a few articles that I found that were very interesting. Now, for the thumbnail that we have for the Tonight Show, that's actually Abu Bakari II. And this next document has nothing to do. I'm just segueing off of that. So if you know anything about Abu Bakari II, he was the predecessor to Mansa Musa. And Abu Bakari II, he actually took a fleet, and he was from Mali. He was the Musa of Mali.
Mm,
Um, and he was the Musa of Mali. So you look at Abu Bakari II, he
mhm.
actually came over here to this part of the world. He sent the fleet out first.
Oh yeah.
The fleet went out, and only two ships came back. And he said, "Okay, I want to go out and I want to allegedly see what was on the other side." But just me looking at it, I think he already knew what was over there. I
Yeah.
think that those who stumbled upon the history that came from Timbuktu, as you mentioned earlier, Sheik,
Mhm,
they
mhm.
themselves didn't understand the vast network and connection, or the network of our ancestors.
We had a global. We had a man. How many ships? Two came back, but how many did he send over here?
Can't remember offhand. I think it was a
He
couple
sent
hundred, if I'm
two
not
hundred.
mistaken.
Oh, he
Two
sent
hundred.
200 ships over here,
Yeah.
and only two came back, right? And we know and understand that the Atlantic Ocean wasn't always an ocean,
Come on.
right?
That's right.
It was a river at one time, and we can know and understand this. We can go back to some of them European masters that was teaching, um, and we ain't gonna get into that because we that'll take us way back into some more ancient times. We just focusing on colonial, but he sent 200 ships over here, Mo.
Right. 200.
200.
Two, did he send? And my question to myself, I'm asking myself, did he send them, or were they just coming over here traveling? And did they inhabit it? Because I mean, again, we were already here. So me just thinking, there was already a vast network, but we'll get into that in a later episode. No speculation to this.
Hmm.
So I know you read the Divine Origins of the Asiatic Nations, right?
Hmm.
You made mention of, or the prophet made mention of the Turks. Can you read that part if you don't mind, Sheik?
Okay.
I think that's the last verse.
And yep, that's the last verse. And he says, the Turks are the true descendants of Hagar, whom or who are the chief protectors of the Islamic creed,
Dealing with the
beginning,
Ottomans.
beginning from Muhammad the First, the founder of the Uniting of Islam by the command of the great universal God Allah.
Praise
Right.
Allah.
And and you was talking about J.A. Rogers, right?
Right. Right.
All right. So uh, J.A. Rogers has a like a comic book type thing, right?
That's right.
And he talks about Prophet Muhammad, he talks about Bilal, and he talks about a few other individuals, and he gives a description of how they looked and how the Moorish people looked and things of this nature.
Right.
And something interesting, and we'll go into this in a later show. When you look at the Moorish flag and you look into Islamic culture and you find out what that color red means, the prophet knew exactly what he was doing, right?
Right.
Because now when you look at the Moorish flag, you go back to earlier flags, and the first dynasty was the Fatimid
The
dynasty.
dynasty. That's right.
And then there are various other Moorish dynasties that come after the Fatimid dynasty, right? So, but that's just a little because that's still getting into some ancient history. But that color red, I would like for people to investigate, on their own what that color red means, and we'll, in later shows we'll deal with it. I mean, it means many different things. Blood is one of them, but
That's right.
what does it mean in the Islamic world?
Islamic world.
Yeah.
Praise Allah. Turks, Moors, and Moriscos, right?
Hmm.
So I'm just going to read the portions that I highlighted. And again, I think the brother who presented this is very scholarly. I think that I like how he used. All right, so I'm gonna do not a little transliteration, but I'm gonna kind of put some things into perspective, right?
Hmm.
So he says, Turks, Moors, and Moriscos. Knowledge begins with the correct use of terminology, which is true. He says it is impossible to evaluate accurately the historical references to Turks and Moors. In the records of Drake's liberated galleys of slaves without clarifying what these terms meant in the 16th century. Both words have broad and narrow usages, so it is necessary to keep all possible meanings in mind. Now, when I look at the term Turk and when I look at the term Moor, I just me, I see them at this point in time in the 16th century as being interchangeable to a slight degree, depending on the perspective of the person who is narrating the story. You
Hmm.
know, same way when you look at the term Indian and they use the word later in later years, the term mulatto, so on and so forth. Both erroneous terms,
Uh-huh.
Indian, mulatto, to describe our people, are erroneous. However, that's part of history. So we're not going to omit it from the history books, but we're going to look at it as a reference point as to those who were writing our history or those who were attempting to whitewash our history
Hmm.
to kind of cover up the truth about who we truly are. It says most contemporary historians who have written on Drake's literary galley of slaves have treated the word Moor too narrowly as exclusively referring to North African Moors without excluding Moriscos, the former Moors of Spain and Portugal. So the brother right here, he's saying that they're former Moors because they, uh, I guess, converted to Christianity under force.
Hmm.
I mean, that's his prerogative. That's his perspective. I believe that they're still Moors, just based off of historical. They were forced by sword to convert. Did they have to? No, they didn't. But some weren't as strong as others. It says failure. To understand the broader implications of the term of the word Moors has often rendered the historical narrative confusing and not truly reflective of the potentially very diverse origins of groups of people involved, which is true because when you're dealing with uh, when you're dealing with an empire, you have various different kingdoms, or you have various different
Mhm.
satellite networks of people, and
Mhm.
they're going to be diverse. I'll give you an example. You have Moorish Americans who live here in Baltimore, Maryland.
Mhm.
Moorish American culture here in Baltimore might not look the same as Moorish
Mhm.
American culture in Los Angeles because there are temples in Los Angeles. It
Mhm.
might not look the same as Moorish American culture in Atlanta. It
Mhm.
might not look the same as Moorish American culture in New York City. And
Mhm.
likewise, New York City and New York State may have a different culture altogether.
Correct.
Nevertheless, these individuals belong under one umbrella, unifying umbrella, which is the Moorish
Mhm.
Science Temple of America, right?
Mhm. And,
All right.
and can I address a couple of things real quick?
Oh, go ahead,
Not
Street.
not gonna belabor the point.
I see
When
this
you
here.
when you watch our show, please make sure that you read and make sure that you put on your thinking cap and make sure that you're listening. Not
Oh,
one time did we say that the prophet Muhammad was on the agenda that we're on. Clearly, he couldn't have been because Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, didn't suffer the things that our people suffered.
conditions.
Even though he went through similar things. Thirdly, we never said that the Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America was the same as the Quran of Mecca.
Right?
So please put on your listen. Don't listen with your emotions. Listen for understanding and make sure that you pay attention and go back and watch previous shows so that you can establish in your mind what it is that we're doing here on More Sense.
Correct.
If not, if you don't like what we're doing, feel free. We praise Allah. We will love you just the same. Do not watch us.
Yeah,
Watch
that's pretty
who
much.
you want to learn from because clearly, if you don't come here with an open mind and you're not listening and you're trying to go back and forth with us, we don't do goofy, period. Because there are
We,
people who want to learn and there are people who think they know it all. If you know it all, go establish your own channel and do what it is that you do. We will love you and we might even come and support you.
yeah,
So
that's
praise
true.
Allah, Islam.
It's all right.
Yeah,
Islam
it's
shit.
good. I just wanted to address that.
No, it's perfectly fine. And also, and I haven't said it in a while, but we've made mention before that we accept all challenges. So,
Yeah, bring
Philadelphia, you more than welcome to come on the show. Not
yeah,
this at this
and
point in time, but
we
if you want
not
to
just
come on the
talk.
show,
We
and
not just talking about lay scholars.
right,
We are degreed individuals. So we will go to colleges. Um, we can if we do the rules of debate. And please look up if you're going to challenge us, please do it respectfully.
all right,
Look up the rules to debate because that's what we go by. We don't do a lot of yelling, arguing, going back and forth,
right.
aha moments. No, we are going to do it according to the rules of debate. And actually, we don't debate, we communicate. So if you're trying to learn, come. If not, stay away.
Well said, Sheik. Well said. All right, so let's continue. I think let me go back right here. All
Was
right.
you on the North African Moors without including Moriscos?
Yes, sir. I think I'm.
Okay.
Let me see. Just looking at it real quick. Yeah, I'm right there. Thank you. I appreciate it. So, North African Moors, without including Moriscos, the former Moors of Spain and Portugal. Failure to understand the broader implications of the word Moors has often rendered the historical narrative confusing and not truly reflective of the potentially various diverse origins of the groups involved. In the 16th century, the terms Turk and Moor, in the broad sense, were used as a generic reference to Muslims, regardless of national, cultural, or ethnic backgrounds. In the Iberian context, Moor was still the common generic word for Muslim or Muslim, and that the broad usage still applies to the Spanish records of Drake's liberated Gallia slaves. Since the Middle Ages, Spanish legal codes had defined Muslims as Moors.
Mm,
In the legal code
Say, whoa.
Yeah, because I mean, and
Legal
and
code.
this is the point right here, man, in the legal code, man. So again, to the person, and I'm not trying to, I don't do this often, but the person who's harping on it, we accept all challenges, man. You know, we even, I'm not even gonna go there, but we accept all challenges. If you want to get on the program, respectfully, email us or Gmail us at moorishsensemedia@gmail.com, and I'll set it up. It's
You,
not a
you know
problem.
what?
But once we, but and I'm gonna just draw from what you say, Sheik. Um, I'm going to ask you prior to that. I'm going to give you my phone number, and the first thing I'm going to ask you is, do you have enough courage for the truth? And if you say yes, that you have enough courage for the truth, then I will present all documents, both Islamic, Moorish, dealing with Islam as well, and other sources as well, and we can get down to it. Because again, we don't back away or back up from any challenge.
Yeah, and just pay attention to what we doing, because the Philadelphia is actually on a whole nother agenda.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, we not even whatever he's talking or he or she is talking about. We're not even talking about that.
Yeah, but it's
We're
all good.
talking about something else. So
Yeah, praise
um,
Allah.
please be respectful of the topic. If not, for this particular show, we'll get you out the paint, and then
Yeah,
once you're ready and you compile your documents and you're ready to and you study the rules of
debate.
scholarly debate, then we can talk.
That's right. All right, praise Allah. So it says in the legal code of King Alfonso X of Castile between the years of 1221 and 1284, Moor referred to a sort of people who believed in Muhammad, that believed that Muhammad was the prophet or messenger of God. For centuries during the European Crusades movement, the conquered Muslim populations of formerly Moorish Spain and Portugal, who had continued to live under Christian rule, were still regarded as Moors and lived in Moorish quarters. While the Spanish colonized the Philippines in the 16th century, they referred to the large indigenous Muslim populations they accounted as Moors. They
And
protracted,
you
go ahead,
know
Sheikh,
what word they use in the Philippines?
was that.
Moro.
And that's right there. It
Hmm.
says they protracted wars to subdue them. They were called Moro, meaning more in wars. The word Turks and Moors could be used more narrowly to refer to various national and political affiliations or cultural ethnic identities. When used in more specific word sense, the word Turk had an essentially national influence. And that's what it says on the other side. So I'm gonna stop right there on that. Um, and we're going to slow walk to the last part, and then from there, did you want to add anything, Sheik? Before I
No,
keep
just um, man, praise Allah that you finding the sources, and showing like the information is there. You just have to have the right context, and that's why we give honor to Prophet Noble Drew Ali, because in our journeys through education, if we didn't have the proper context, which came from Prophet Noble Drew Ali, then we would still be thinking that we are Negro, black, and colored. We would still be picking up somebody else's culture,
come on now.
thinking that we ruled the world 3 times over again. Even the headdress that we have on, the Prophet, Noble Drew Ali established this headdress for a particular reason, and and he connected us to a certain part of the world. And the year that they banned or outlawed this demonstration in this particular part of the world, it's not strange that that's during the time of the reign of Prophet Noble Drew Ali, and he established this as our national headdress, right? So, um, praise Allah, man. It don't get no better than this.
Praise Allah. A few more points, Sheik, and then
Mhm.
I'm gonna
Yeah,
wrap it
yeah,
up
yeah.
if you don't
Praise
mind.
Allah.
All right. So I find it very interesting when various different communities they deal with I guess you could say the Islamic presence. They don't want to ever give credence to the Moorish presence, but we're going to do that
Mhm.
today for the sake of time, for the sake of understanding, and for the sake of those who are watching. How's it coming in over here, Sheik? Is it? Can
Yeah,
you see it or I need to
it's
zoom
a
in?
little small.
Let me
If
see if I
you
can zoom
is
in.
it way you can increase it? It's
I
just a
think it's a
tad
way.
bit small.
I'm not used to Google, but let's say, and if it's not, then I'll just read what I have. I'm not tripping off of it.
Mhm. I mean, it's legible.
It's legible.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean,
you know,
I'll just read
I
it.
got on,
So
I got on bifocal, so
I'll read it. Wait a minute. No, I know what to do. I know what to do. I got it. I got it now. I got it. I can zoom in. Give me 1 second. All right. How about now?
yeah, that's a lot better.
Better. All right. I'm gonna zoom in 1 more time. All right. I think this should be good. Yeah. All right. So section I'm coming from today. This is from MuslimsInAmerica.org. Again, very interesting. How certain points that are raised in this article is pretty good, but I wanted to focus on this right here. It says history is a narrative of events and stories and a chronological record of events. And this is Muslim America speaking. So again, this is the source that I'm using. Give me 1 second. It says, let me move it over a little bit. It says, we have a long and insightful history with many contributions to the American society in which both public and many Muslim Americans are not aware. Example, under the conception of the liberation, it was a Muslim country, Morocco, that first acknowledged America's freedom as an independent country. You often hear Moorish Americans and Moors in general
Hmm.
allude to that, and that's perfectly fine. Praise Allah. It says they also have a longer standing treaty with the United States. It says we have Muslims and people in the Islamic last names fighting in the Revolutionary War.
Uh-oh.
Right. So we can get into that too at a later date. All right. Because we didn't have to adopt someone else's customs because we had already been here.
That's right.
It says, for that matter, in all the wars in the United States, even before the Revolutionary War, there were two Muslims, Abdel Qunder and Muhammad, who came as Al Salih, Morocco. They petitioned the government in South Carolina for their freedom in 1753 and won. There are also groups of Muslims from Morocco known as the South Carolina Ten, and they also are known as the Sundry Moors of South Carolina in 1790,
1790.
who won their freedom. It says we additionally find in history a descendant of a Muslim family from Ghana named Paul Kafi, who was
Uh-oh.
who was the
He,
first.
he
And I'm
when
gonna say
he had his own ships, didn't he?
that's right.
Okay.
I won't even say African American. I'm gonna say Moorish American
Hmm.
to petition the ruling powers in 1850 to free every slave and allow every so-called colored man desiring to leave America the freedom to do so. He had taken at least 38 people to Sierra Leone. We also find at least two Muslims being liberated from the Tawaka, faith, love, and belief in Allah. And that's excuse me, Abuya Job Ibn
Ibn Solomon, Diallo.
Diallo, yeah, also known as Solomon Job or Solomon Ben Job or whatever it is,
Hmm.
right? Or Job Solomon in
Hmm.
1730, not to say
Hmm.
whatever. It says, and also Ibrahim Abdul Abraman, also known
Hmm.
as the Prince. And when you study him, they actually say that he was a Moorish prince.
Yeah.
Um,
They
yeah,
starting to change it now. They
yeah,
trying to change the narrative, but
yeah. If you get an
we
old record, they'll tell you he was a Moorish
mhm,
prince.
yeah,
Who is she?
in the eight in the 1800s, and we have a document that talks about him. We have a document. It's a like a maybe a 3 pager, and it calls him the Moorish Prince.
Right. He was in Mississippi. Matter of
Hmm.
fact, he was in Natchez, Mississippi. They said he had on a blue coat. He had a with a yellow star and a crescent on it, and he
Hmm.
was known as the Moorish Prince. He actually was here in Baltimore as well because he
Hmm.
traveled from Natchez, Mississippi, all the way up through the South to
Hmm.
Baltimore, up to Philadelphia, and I believe he ended up in New York.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's neither, that's just a little bit of background information. So let's go to the early pre-Columbian wave, right? And thank you for tuning in to our brother who said this is critical information. I'm paying attention. Praise Allah.
Praise Allah.
Please subscribe to the Moorish Sense channel if you don't, if you haven't already done so. But if you enjoy it, just subscribe. It says the Muslim historian Abdul Hassan Ali ibn al Hussein al Musadi of 1871 to 957 CE wrote in his book, The Mudru Abdin Abedin wa Madin al Johar, that, and I'm not going to even try to pronounce his name right there, the Muslim navigator from Cordoba, Spain, sailed from Delba, Palos in 899 CE. He crossed the Atlantic and reached the unknown territory and returned with fabulous treasures. It also says the Muslim geographer and cartographer Al Sharif al Idris, 1099 to 1166 CE, wrote in his book about the excursions here in America. And then you also had a seafarer in North Africa who sailed the sea of darkness and fog. But I want to go down, and let me see. Wanted to go down to,
What are you talking about? Anthropologist
yes, sir,
Clyde Ahmed
Clyde Atman.
Winters.
But I wanted to go to the Sultans, right? It
Okay,
says the
okay.
Sultan's famous brother, the Medinga Haj Masoon Khan Musa, informed the scholars of Maluk Bari Sultan, court judge of Nasir ibn Muhammad III in Cairo, that his brother, Sultan Abu Bakr, who's in the thumbnail, had undertaken two expeditions in the Atlantic. From the second voyage in 1311, the Sultan did not return to Timbuktu. And then you start dealing with the anthropologist Clyde Ahmed Winters. He has the records called Islam in Early North and South America that prove the Madinkos under Abu Bakari explored many parts of North America via the Mississippi River and other river systems. At the four corners of Arizona, they find writing
Mm,
showing that they even brought elephants from Africa.
mm.
After the Spanish acquisition, Columbus and the early Spanish Portuguese explorers were able to voyage across the Atlantic thanks to the Muslims' geographical and navigational information. They received maps made by the Muslim traders, and the book Akbar as Zaman, The History of the World by Al Masudi, which was based on the information and material of Africa and Asia. Columbus even had two captains of Muslim heritage with him on his first voyage. Martin Alonso Pinzon was the captain of the Pinta, and Vicente Yazim Pinzon was the captain of the Nina. They were wealthy expert ship outfitters who helped Columbus organize and prepare the Santa Maria. The Pinzon family.
Mo.
Go
Hey,
ahead.
hey,
I'm
in
moving
school,
fast,
in
man.
school, yeah, yeah. In school, don't they teach you about the Santa, the Penta and the Nina and the and the
Nina, that's
and
right.
the, and the Santa Maria or whatever? Come on, Mo.
That's right, man.
So they job indoctrinating you in secret. You get
That's
what I'm
right.
saying?
That's right. You got to.
Taking an event that your ancestors demonstrated and not even revealing to you, making you think that it was them who did it.
Yeah, you gotta go outside yourself, man. Try to find yourself, but really, all you have to do is just study your history. It's not a
Yeah,
mystery.
you already been there. You've been there.
Been here, man. It says the Pinzon family were related to Abu Zayn Muhammad II, the Sultan of Morocco, during the Mernid dynasty in 1196 to 1140, 1465. I'm gonna wrap it up in a minute because I know it's getting late, everybody. It says in Nigel Davies' book, Voyages to the New World, he reports that Columbus recorded in his papers. Now we back to Columbus. Now the earlier document I showed you, 1493. So he said some things in 1493 and tried to discredit the people, but now he's going to let the cat out of the bag in 1492.
Mm-hmm.
October 12th, in 1492, while sailing near Jabara on the northeast coast of Cuba, he saw a mosque, probably a temple, on the top of a beautiful mountain in ruins of mosque and minares with the inscriptions of Quranic verses that were found in Cuba, Mexico, Texas, and Nevada.
Mm.
In Patrick Hughes' book, Columbia Was Last, he reports that Columbus' second voyage, he was told by the so-called Indians in Hispaniola, meaning Haiti, that so-called black people had been on the island before him. They presented Columbus with spears of these African Muslims. These weapons were tipped with the yellow metal that the so-called Indians called goini, a word from West Africa meaning gold alloy. The goini is related to the word yena, which means wealth. The metal was later discovered to be 18 parts gold, 6 parts silver, 8 parts copper, which was the same ratio as the metal produced in the metal shops in Guinea, Africa. Got anything to share on that sheet?
Man, look, I think that's clear. That's clear as day.
Yeah, man.
It's a blessing, Mo, for like I said, the prophet to be our guide and to guide us basically of who we are, where we come from, what our religion is, the shade of our skin, and that we do have a nationality, and that
She,
nobody,
no, go ahead, because I
and
got
that
questions. Wait, go ahead.
that nobody can come to dictate to us, right? Besides the great God Allah of how we should practice our Allah given right.
That's right.
Yeah, nobody can do that.
Not at all. You made mention of Kufik, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah, the Kufic script.
Let's get into that. All right, here we go. And then
I
from
think I know
there,
where you're going with that.
so we have a huh, let me zoom in. All right, let's go in. All right, I'm gonna go up a little bit. So this source right here, I'm just going up. It's from the fountain. It's called Islam and Muslims in America before Columbus. Right.
Hmm.
I'm gonna go down, and we're gonna go to proof of Western sources. It says Professor Barry Fell, retired lecturer from
Oh
Harvard
yeah.
University, and also a member of the American Academy of Science and Arts, the Royal Society, the Epigraphy Society, and the Society of Scientific and Archaeological Discoveries, is adamant about the arrival of Islam in America in 650s, but it actually was here longer,
Hmm.
predating it. But okay, so it says predicting this argument, predicating this argument upon the Kufic calligraphy belonging to that era found in various diggings across America. If the words of Professor Fell have truth value, then the Muslims had arrived in America during the era of Uthman, or at least that of Ali, the fourth caliph.
Mm.
Such information, however, is not found in any Muslim sources. Now I wonder why. Is it quite possible that they don't want this stuff to come out? Because if it comes out, that would kind of show, or again, let
Mhm.
the cat out of the bag, that Islam in this part of the world is just as old, if not older, than Islam on that part of the world.
And let's mention where Professor Barry Fell was a tenured professor at Harvard University.
Right,
He wrote three books: Saga America, America BC, and Bronze Age America. So
right,
he was a renowned scholar in reference to he talked about the Mandan,
that's right,
uh who, and when you talk about the Mandan, you got to go to Lewis and Clark, and you find out that Saka Jawir, how they try to put her in Night at the Museum. They,
right,
took a like a nice movie, funny, but they took that and they go into Saka Jawir showing Lewis and Clark. But also when you study the history about, I think it was Meriwether or Clark came back and they saw the Mandan
mm,
and what they call Indians, which we know were Moors. He saw the Mandan, they gave him something, and he wound up. They say he committed suicide, but he was like shot or stabbed multiple times.
wow.
Yeah, man. This stuff, it's yeah. Why they don't want that? Why they don't want that to get out?
They don't want it to get out the bag, man. But we letting it out tonight. So let's
Yeah.
continue and let's wrap. Let's we're gonna wrap it up for everybody. It says Professor Fell again uses the results of various archaeological diggings undertaken across many regions in the states of Colorado, New Mexico, and Indiana to assert the construction of Muslim schools during 700 to 800 CE, and that's Common Era.
Mm-hmm.
Writings, drawings, and charts inscribed on rocks discovered in the most remote and untainted terrains of Western America are relics bestowed by the elementary and intermediate systems of Muslim education at the time. These documents are written in old Kufic letters of North African Arabic, which is really when you're dealing with Berber writing,
Mm-hmm.
covering subjects such as, and not Berber more than likely, but when you're dealing with Arabic, you got to ask yourself, well, who are you making reference to when you're talking about the Arabs who transversed from Arabia to that part of North Africa known as the Maghreb? But
Mm-hmm.
he says such as reading, writing, arithmetic, religion, history, geography, mathematics, astronomy, and navigation. The descendants of these settlers are thought to be the current native tribes of the Iroquois, the Algonquin, the Anasazi, the Hohokam, and the Olmec.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second piece of evidence the professor found was the inscription of in the name of God found on a rock during the archaeological work in Nevada, belonging to the 7th century.
Oh,
Go ahead, Sheik.
seven. All you gotta do is look up 1709, the Arizona Gazette, of all the things that they had, and we not even gonna go into the different stones that we know of.
That's right.
Um, until in later shows we'll go into those, the different stones that was found in Illinois, Kentucky,
Kentucky.
and various other places.
Praise Allah. So it says in the name of God, picture one, found on a rock during the archaeological work in Nevada, belongs to the 7th century when Hakkara's sign system had not been yet developed. Likewise, the stone bearing the inscription, Muhammad is the prophet of God, picture two, is pertinent to the same era. And we give honor to all true and divine prophets, Jesus,
That's right.
Muhammad, Buddha, Confucius, etc. I'll say that again, Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, Confucius, etc., meaning the prophets that we find and all true and divine records.
There are many prophets of Allah, those who are named and some that are not named, and
That's
that's
right.
according to the elementary teachings of Islam.
Islam. As seen by the comparison of the two pictures, the very inscriptions are not in the same modern Arabic. So they didn't use modern Arabic, they used Kufic, as you mentioned earlier,
Right.
Sheikh.
That's right.
Conversely, they are in a Kufic style relevant to the 7th century. And I'll stop there.
Praise Allah.
Praise Allah.
Islamism.
Islamism. I think we've
Oh,
gone through a great deal. We didn't mean to oversaturate everyone.
yeah,
And
yeah,
hopefully we
yeah.
didn't,
It,
but
it just got a little, it just that's what happened.
yeah,
See, uh, the moment I say, "Don't you know I got fire, a fire called truth,"
that's right.
right?
Right.
And not it don't it, and we not talking about we talking about we on fire with love and holy zeal. So
That's right.
you know you could blow on the fire if you want, and when you blow on it, hey, now So praise Allah. We love what we do,
That's right.
and hopefully people got something from it.
We hope we did.
And we'll be back with more. Because now you going into the Revolutionary War and some of
Mhm.
the names and
That's
and
right.
and that's a blessing.
Praise Allah. And as we
Yeah.
did before, we put the email address in the chat. So, as I stated before earlier, just for general inquiries, if you have any questions, or even like I said before, challenges,
Hmm.
our email address is moresensemedia@gmail.com. We just ask that you be respectful of
Hmm.
anything you send us. And we look to build a rapport. We're not confrontational,
Yeah, yeah, not at all.
oppositional. We know what we know. We're willing to learn, but we also know what we know, and we're not going to allow anybody to sit here and try to strong arm us or to try to, I guess, put us in a box, so to speak.
Or make it try to seem like
We don't know.
we are
Yeah,
not
yeah,
on the true path, on the straight path
right.
of what Subhanahu wa Ta'ala put us on.
That's right.
Our situation is much different from other individuals. My I got a good my who I call my uncle, right?
Hmm.
Um Abdul Mateen, right? I mean I know so many other brothers. It's just certain people that really their heart and their mind is in the wrong place, and they certain people who have some type of animosity towards the Moorish Science Temple.
Right.
Um, they just I don't know. They go, but
Go left.
we have great relationships with different umas,
That's
right?
right.
I don't speak Arabic fluently, but I know a little bit about a
Same.
little bit, right?
Right.
So praise Allah. You just please keep tuning in. We hope that you get the inspiration or some type of inspiration, just as we have received inspiration from the Prophet Noble Durali, our teachers, and guides and leaders and families and things of this nature. So praise Allah.
Yeah, praise Allah. So with that being said, again, if you have any questions, comments, you can put them in the chat, or you can go back to previous episodes and look at the previous episodes if you have any comments about anything that we covered as well. We're going to come back a little bit more consistently in the next couple of days to weeks to come. But we're not going to get off of this topic because um, I think the part that you just raised, Sheet, in regards to dealing with the revolutionary period, we can kind of slow walk that part as well.
Oh
Right
yeah,
after
yeah.
we deal with this section.
Hmm.
So it's a blessing, So for everyone that tuned in, again, thank you for tuning into the channel. If you haven't done so already, if you're on Facebook, we ask that you go over to YouTube and subscribe. If you're on Facebook, you can like the page, follow the page, etc. But we look forward to coming back and meeting with you and sharing what we have learned with you at the same Moorish time, the same Moorish channel, the Moorish Sense Channel. And with that being said, Sheikh, do you want to lead us out in prayer?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Islam,
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 Islam.
Islam.
Allah, the Father of the universe,
Allah, the Father of the universe,
the Father of love,
Father of love,
truth,
truth,
peace,
peace,
freedom,
freedom,
and justice.
and justice.
Allah is my protector,
Allah is my protector,
my guide,
my God,
and my salvation
my salvation,
by night
by night
and by day.
and by day.
Through his holy prophet,
His holy prophet,
Drew Ali.
Shur Ali.
Amen.
Amen.
Islamism.
Islam. Peace and love, everyone.
Peace.